everyone, this is the Almost World Podcast. Bringing to you mind-blowing interviews with guests from all over the world. So settle down, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh yeah, by the way, if you like the podcast, please support Almost World Podcast on Patreon. Your support is what helps the podcast improve more and more. Welcome to Almost World Podcast. My name is Elmo. Hey guys, and I have an awesome guest here today. His name is Jason Hanerfeld. Is that right, man? Jason, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Jason. You can call me Jay. I'm 53 years old. I live in New Jersey in the United States of America. And I've been an atheist now for about 10 years.
53 minus 10 years, that's 43 years of being a theist. Tell us about the journey from maybe, from the start and the moments of change and
Sure.
Why you're certain right now that you are an atheist.
For 43 years, I kind of had a a deist approach to religion, where I considered that there was a God, but whether that was the Christian God or the Episcopalian God or the Muslim God or all of the Hindu gods, I never really looked into it. I was born into a family that was, they were Protestants. And what's interesting is my grandfather was a German Jew, very Jewish family. They were Ashkenazi Jews. He fled Germany before the Nazi regime took over and came to the United States, where he met and fell in love with my grandmother, who was from Cuba. Mm-hmm. And she was a Roman Catholic. And basically, she told him that she was not going to become Jewish. He had to become a Roman Catholic, which he did.
He did.
Yes. So he was basically ostracized from his Jewish side of the family for doing so. Mm-hmm. Anyway, when my father was born, he was a Roman Catholic until he left, out on his own after becoming an adult. And by the time I was born, they were Protestant, Lutheran Protestant to be exactly. Mm-hmm. And that's how I was kind of raised. My father used to read the Bible to me. We had a beautiful family Bible where we kept a family tree. And we still have it. Actually, it's quite an amazing thing to see. It used to be gold. It was gold bound in white leather with gold inlay. And I mean, it's just kind of crazy. But like I said, after my father had, he died early at the age of 52. And I had actually, just being out on my own, I never was the kind of person to go to church, except being a musician. I did actually play for churches or for gospel groups. I would get invited to play and I would often go, but I never really was religious, like going to church on Sunday and stuff like that. Now, 10 years ago, and this is very interesting. 10 years ago, I took my iPhone and just messing around, I asked Siri if God exists or does God exist? And I forget what she said exactly, but nowadays, if you ask your phone, she'll say, it's all a mystery to me. That's not what she said when I asked originally. She mentioned something about it being a human question. And then she asked me if I wanted to look it up on the internet, and I said yes. Now, the first thing that came up was I believe it was William Lane Craig versus Christopher Hitchens on Does God Exist?
Mm-hmm.
And I watched that video debate,
Mm-hmm.
and I listened to it. And at the end of it, I honestly had to ask myself, well, wait a minute. Does everything that I've assumed match up with everything that I believe? And as I dug deeper, reading books, listening basically to the Four Horsemen, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, I forget the Daniel Dennett, and of course Richard Dawkins, and listening to what they had to say, and actually reading other books, and watching and listening to video debates between religious apologists and other people. I began to think that the likelihood of there being a God was less and less. And, so at this point, after 10 years of debating people online and being in several debate groups like on Facebook, going back and forth with people on Google, and this is, dealing with, I've with Christians, with Muslims, with usually that's generally where most of the debate happens. I haven't really spoken to, let's say, a person who is Hindu, but I suspect that the debate would pretty much be the same. I have this idea now that basically a person who believes and a person who doesn't believe, basically will, in the end of their debates, reduce themselves to agnosticism, because to be honest with you, that's what it is. I can no more prove that a God doesn't exist any more than you can prove that one does. So at that point, we both become agnostic, and we have to either agree to disagree, because I don't hold the belief that I am 100% convinced that a God doesn't exist. I just don't believe that one does, because there's no evidence presented to convince me otherwise. But I understand that, we live in a world where reality is not what it seems to be for us. Our evolutionary instinct to survive has made it so that we see reality a certain way, so that we can, benefit, our lives, to exist in a harsh environment. So, I can't, I can sit here and say, we can both agree that something is red in color, but I cannot know for sure if the red you see is exactly the same red that I see. When we get into personal experience, I'm perfectly fine. If you want to believe that a God exists, or in other words, a personal God, I'm perfectly fine with that. But that's as far as it goes. No God has yet to manifest itself outside the minds of men who think it. And to try to convince me, you're more than welcome to try to convince me that one does, but your evidence will either be presupposition or inference to ambiguity rather, which is kind of like a God of a gaps. We don't really know, what's going on here, but, God may exist in this space. And usually, but not often, most debates might end in the religious person threatening, well, you'll find out when you die. And, to me, that's, why do I have to wait? If you had some sort of proof, we wouldn't need to have these conversations. So that's pretty much the gist of it.
You're more of an agnostic atheist, right?
Yeah, Yeah, it depends on who I'm talking to.
It depends on who you're talking
Yeah,
to.
yeah, exactly. It depends on who I'm talking to. I mean, if I'm going to be absolutely honest with you, then yes, I have to say that at best, um, I am agnostic. I'm not like R and Ra, who will, simply just get in your face and say, if you can't show it, then you don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because to me, that's no better than someone saying, well, I absolutely know that a God believes no matter what you say. Kind of like what happened with, if you've ever seen the debate between Ken Ham and Bill Nye. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
basically, that's what happened. I mean, when it came down to it, Ken Ham had to just say, well, nothing you say will convince me that a God doesn't exist. So at that point, the conversation is over. You're absolutely fine. Ken's absolutely fine with his belief, but given the evidence that he's brought forward, not proof, to me that the two different things. Given the evidence that Ken brought forth, it wasn't convincing, and especially with that young Earth creationism, or what do they call it? Intelligent design. It's pretty ridiculous. Um, the So yeah, I mean that's pretty much where I stand. And I always, I enjoy. I don't really debate anymore. I don't honestly. I don't see the need, but I'm still, grouped with debate groups just to see if somebody comes in the group with something interesting. Or I'm always open to hear what anyone has to say.
Mm-hmm.
I don't consider. I'm not one of those atheists that go around and tell people that who are religious that they're idiots, or you're just stupid if you believe this crap. To me, that doesn't foster conversation. My street epistemology is, I'm confident with myself enough that I don't have to vilify you because I can't convince you. It's okay. I don't have to convince you. In the end, I am doing my own. I'm walking my own path. So I'm always open to the idea and I'm always open to the discussion, but I don't have to vilify anybody in order to get an answer, whether it's convincing or whether it's not convincing. That's not, I don't hold that in some regard that somehow it makes me better than another person. And to me, that's just, it's sort of childish, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Okay.
if you listen to the debates of the guys, like Hitchens and Dawkins and Dennett, I mean, and Sam Harris, it's, you can have an intelligent conversation without the vilification. Unfortunately, social media allows people to be, frankly, at their worst, if
Mm-hmm.
you ask me, on both sides.
So, Jason, let's say you were in a debate, right? And you were proven wrong. Would you accept that?
Um, well, proven wrong in what sense? Because I can certainly be outwitted, but does it? But me losing a debate, does that prove that your God exists? Does me winning the debate prove that a God doesn't, or that your particular God doesn't? I don't know. And I've been in debates before where I don't think that I won the debate. Winning the debate for me is allowing the person to realize that maybe what I'm saying is interesting enough for them to do their own research, and look up the answers for themselves and come to a conclusion on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Even if the conclusion that they come to isn't one of, okay, I now question the existence of the God that I believed in. It's okay if that does happen. It's okay if it doesn't. Like I said, I'm on my own journey. So the answers that I'm looking for are for me, and I don't know if they're the answers for anyone else.
Let me ask you this though: does your worldview consist of presuppositions as well?
Oh, sure. I mean, a good question is, do aliens exist? Well, I presuppose that it's possible that aliens could exist, but what proof could I present? Blurry videos and hearsay? It's not very convincing. I presuppose that my wife isn't cheating on me. But the only proof that I have is that I know where she is, and we have daily contact, and it's so it's yeah, I would explain it that way. I mean, everyone has presuppositions, but when we're talking in the realm of religion, for example, the Kalam cosmological argument, to me, the presupposition is the existence of a God. The whole entire argument is nullified by the fact that you have absolutely no proof, nor do I, or any idea what our universe was before it became our universe. The state of our universe is completely unknown to the believer and the non-believer. And as our scientists discover things and push our knowledge further to the point at which we do know when our universe became to exist, as in the Big Bang, still that state before the universe, the religious person presupposes that a God set that in motion, where I say the universe happened for a reason that we don't understand what's happening outside our universe, outside our cosmos. So we're talking about like, the Planck or that scientist who just tried to discuss the idea that's come about multiple universes or bubble universes and all of that stuff. We have no something to what's happening in our universe and outside of our universe, and you have absolutely no proof for it. So when a person tries to argue the Kalam cosmological argument with me, I immediately categorize that as presupposition.
And it seems to me that your epistemology is based a lot on an evidentialist framework, right? Where you won't believe something unless there's actual proof that's testable and you can validate.
Well, yes, I would like to have validation or proof. I mean, if I can't convince myself, especially if I'm the only person that I can convince with said proof, then it's completely worthless to me. I could tell you right now that there's ghosts in my house, and I could give them names. I could tell you what they look like. I could even give you background stories. Is it true? You have no idea sitting where you are. None whatsoever. I could make it as convincing as possible. But in the end, all I could say is, well, you just have to believe me. That doesn't work for me.
Mm.
And whether that's more of a materialist approach, that whatever you want to call it, that's how it works for me. I prefer the validation. I prefer the understanding, because especially, a really good example is quantum mechanics. I've been seeing a lot of hubbub about how quantum mechanics proves the existence of God and all this stuff. Well, you know what? The people used to say that too when it would rain and thunder a lot. And Neil deGrasse Tyson rather would, he would say it best when, if you keep putting your God in this gap where science hasn't figured out what's going on yet, well, that's fine. It can stay there. But once that science gets to the point where it's figured out what's going on, then what happens to your God? And unfortunately, quantum mechanics, I have no idea what quantum mechanics is. I have read about how quantum mechanics supposedly proves that God exists. But again, their evidence isn't convincing to me. It's I don't need to be an oceanologist to know that there aren't mermaids in the ocean. So it's, I don't need to be a quantum physicist to know that right now, what people are claiming to be proof or evidence, really, that quantum mechanics proves as a God, actually doesn't. It just proves quantum mechanics.
Well, I see two things here, right? I see that you would agree with me that there is an objective truth out there, right? That we can, or possibly, that might be impossible for us to know. But there's another thing that you have said, which is that what what the things that you would accept based on the evidence available, right? So something
Sure.
can be true, but we just can't prove it.
Right. And they can absolutely be false, but we just can't prove. So again, I mean, it's, so like I said, I mean, I'm not that type of atheist that,
Yeah. So
like Aaron Ra that runs around.
Just clarifying then from everything that you said, God can be possibly true, right? But there's just not enough evidence to convince you that he is real.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not convinced, and I would consider it highly unlikely, extremely unlikely, but based simply because on just the lack of proof. And I'm not talking about evidence. I'm talking about proof.
Lack of proof might, like, yes, right. Maybe that would be enough. We just don't know because there's lack of proof, right? Okay. So here's my question, right? You would only be convinced of a belief, right, of a concept or a truth if there's enough proof for it. So I would, and so would you say that this is consistent throughout your worldview?
Well, it depends. When we now we're substituting truth for a God. If you're asking me if a God exists, I'm going to say no, I don't believe that one exists. If you're asking me about truth, well, you're going to have to define what that truth is. What are you talking about when you say truth?
Like the objective truth, like the truth as it is, like essential. What is essentially claimed to exist is real, I guess.
So what you're saying is, truth then equals reality, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we both have agreed that there are aspects of reality that we do not understand, or that we haven't even begun to understand. We don't even know that they exist.
Well, I would actually, I guess, truth would be two things. Apparently, like truth would be coherent, and truth would be correspondent with I guess the everything else that is out there. So if there's like truth is logical, I guess. Like if for example, I can't be both non-existent and existent at the same time, right? I only have a task to follow like the laws of logic. So and so laws of non-contradiction, excluded.
Here's the thing: we find ourselves in the predicament there we are in, the two of us, because of logic. Because logic says that I can't prove that God doesn't exist, and also logic has proven that you can't prove that God does exist. So again, we're reduced to agnosticism on both sides of the issue.
And I'm not arguing about the agnosticism, right? I do agree with you that in that sense. But I'm asking you, right? Is your evidentialist approach consistent with all the truth claims that you adhere to in your worldview?
I don't know. I don't know if it is. I don't know if I can give you an example of when it doesn't.
Maybe we could find out. right?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think of an example of something that doesn't add up that we know exists. For a good example, maybe would be how our understanding of mathematics and physics breaks down. Such as Einstein's theory of relativity breaks down in the center of black holes. There's something going on there that we don't understand. And for some reason, the math that we use to pretty much for empirical evidence, a lot of times dealing with our cosmos, there are some instances where it doesn't add up. Now, you could say that that's supernatural, but not supernatural in the phantom ghost way, but supernatural in there's something going on that is actually happening, and we know that it is, but we can't explain it yet, because much like what was it, calculus determined how the planets rotation and in our solar system, the math, let's say, hasn't been invented yet to figure out what is going on in the center of a black hole to explain the reason why E equals MC squared doesn't work.
Okay, so I think you're going the route where your evidentialist approach is not necessary for you to believe in the truth, right? Like in how black holes work.
Right. I mean, I can't, like I said, I don't know what's going on in that black hole, and men more intelligent than I haven't figured out what's going on in that black hole. But we know what's going on because we know that when we try to do the math as stated in that law that Einstein came up with, the theory of relativity, the numbers don't add up. And at some point when we figure out what's going on there, it will make more sense, and we can say, okay, now we understand, and now
I'm not referring to the things that we don't understand yet. Yeah, we could take those for granted for now, because there's still an ignorance there that we have to solve, right? And so, but my question, right, is for the concepts throughout your worldview, ethics, existentialism, politics, is the evidentialist approach consistent, and does it dominate, and is it necessary every time you have to believe in something?
Hold on a second. I'm trying to think what you're asking me.
Okay, so let me look at introduce the
okay. Well, hold on a second. I can come to my own beliefs, absolutely, but I also use knowledge from others to try to figure out whether has anyone else also thought this, or does anyone else believe this, or
but just because someone else believes it doesn't mean it's something that you should believe, right?
Right, exactly. I'll make my own. I can make my own conclusions.
Yeah, but as you have said, right? You need testable predictions in order to believe something. To validate it and go through the proofs to be able to believe in something. So maybe here's a question, right? Maybe to that we can move this forward, because I would like to understand your views on life, on meaning, the big questions, man, because this is your philosophical worldview.
Right. Well, let's start with life. I often hear people discussing the question, what's the meaning of life? And for me, the meaning of life is to live it. Okay. Everything else, the meaning, the purpose, all of that stuff comes from living it.
Why?
There is no why. Why is there a why?
Well, what's your proof that
What's my
there's
what's
no
my
one?
proof? I'm living my life.
So it's a
I know
circular argument.
it's a very simple answer
So
to a very
you're
big question.
saying that you're living your life because you're living your life.
No, I'm living my life because that's what life is. Now, if you're going to ask me what I don't see, you know, you're you're going to have to break down
Then let's
from
break it
the big
down.
question.
Yeah.
So break it down from the big question then, and
Okay,
maybe
so
I'll have an answer.
let's start here, right? Is do you is there an actual you that that is free to make decisions? Do you have agency?
Um, yes, even though some scholars would probably disagree that there's
So
free
you
will,
okay, so you're
I
a
believe I have agency.
compatibilist, right?
Yes,
Okay.
sure.
So in a deterministic world, right, where everything is material and there's no spirit stuff or whatever, right? And you don't have evidence for that, so you don't believe it, right?
Right.
So why do you think you have agency?
Maybe I don't,
So you don't
but
think? So do you
so
believe
no.
it?
Well, what I mean by that is maybe in a philosophical sense that I don't, or maybe even a reality sense that I don't.
What's the difference between a philosophical sense and a reality sense?
Metaphysical and physical.
What does that mean?
It means one's metaphysical,
Mm-hmm. So what
and
can you
it's
explain what a metaphysical free will is compared to a physical free will?
well, metaphysical relates to metaphysics,
Yeah.
characteristics of metaphysical. Yeah, in other words, like what how do you measure infinity, that sort of thing. I mean, metaphysics is it's philosophy. It can in the concerns of existence and nature of things
And
that exist
uh,
apart from ontology.
physical is also philosophy, right?
It can be absolutely, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying though the difference for me between metaphysical and physical,
Mm-hmm.
to me
Can
anything
you give me an
metaphysical is,
example of a metaphysical in a metaphysical sense of free will? What would that look like? What do you mean by that?
I don't know. I would say like when I play music or create music, I improvise. In other words, I'm not thinking
Mm,
so much about what I'm playing.
mm,
Um, I I I have a set of rules to abide by so that the
mm.
notes that I play sound good. But I'm really not thinking about what I'm doing. But amazingly, I can play something that sounds really nice.
That's
Or
so it's sort of like there's a metaphysical you that's bypassing the physical you that should just be doing this
well, I
materialistic
think
deterministic
see,
world.
I don't think there's a bypassing. I think that it's connected. The
It's
way the
connected.
mind, yes, the way the mind works, conscious and subconscious. I mean,
Consciousness, you
it's
mean?
not something that's disconnected from the body.
Okay, so
It's all connected to me.
free will is related to consciousness, right? And
Of
so
course, it should be. Yeah.
the metaphysical agency that you have is reliant on the consciousness. So do you understand like how consciousness is related to your agency?
I don't know. I haven't given that much thought, but to be honest with you, I don't.
So do you have evidence that the metaphysical you that agency is actually sourcing from your consciousness?
Well, it has to. In order for me to, like I said, there's rules that I have to abide by while I'm playing. I learned those rules externally, and then I use them internally to
Mm.
process them back out externally.
So the rules that you are referring to are the laws of logic or like the physical laws.
It's probably both. It's a
Mhm.
combination of both, really.
So I guess it just makes more sense that the metaphysical agency that you have is like sources or is related to your consciousness?
Well, I mean, when you say metaphysical conscious, I mean, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that.
Well, I guess again, I'm just using words that you're using. You
No,
know what
no,
I mean?
that's fine. I mean, so let me explain the reason why that may be a difficult uh, to explain is because
Mm.
I don't think that there's a metaphysical in a supernatural sense of consciousness.
No,
I
we're not
think
talking
that
about like a supernatural.
yeah, well, no, I'm saying it's to me it is chemical reactions and whatever has yet to be explained, but
Mm.
to me it's definitely a material. It's a material thing. It's not a supernatural thing.
Mm. Okay. So let's use like the term material and immaterial. I guess so right, but you're saying that there's no immaterial stuff happening whatsoever.
In my mind, well, but that's not true either.
But metaphysical is immaterial, wouldn't you say? Because it's outside of the physical. It's beyond it.
Well, yeah, it can be.
So there is an immaterial stuff that's occurring,
Well,
when we
sure,
have agency.
we don't know where conscious comes from yet. To me, that's metaphysics as far as the way it
So
sits
so
right now.
so do you think that's there what do you think is this metaphysical thing? Is it just something about the physical realm that we just don't know about yet? Or maybe
Well,
there's
it's something about consciousness that we just don't know yet.
so it's still within the physical realm.
So when we say metaphysics, I mean we're talking about what can't be reached through objective studies of material reality. You can open up a brain and take it down to its tiniest parts, but it's not going to show you, or you'll have any more understanding of where conscious comes from in the brain.
Mm-hmm. So when you say agency, and you establish it in a materialist framework, which you are a
Right,
materialist, right?
right,
Um, it seems to me that an agency requires an agent, and an agent needs to be is something that is sort of metaphysically grouped as separate from the universe, from everybody else, right? So that means that this agent, this object that moves and that has choices, is actually something that decides for itself, right? That reacts to external forces, but also acts like uh outside of external forces. Do you get what I mean?
I think so. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
So
when you
you
say
are so you're so you so there is this agent that is you, right?
I feel that there is, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but so this agent though, it's actually just a grouping that's a metaphysical grouping that we associate with the brain, right? And its actions and that
Right, and
affect the human body.
it's consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
But in terms of the laws of the universe, right, and a cause and effect and everything, right? Um,
Mhm.
if and the universe, no matter what it does, it will obey the laws that it follows, right? Like a mug will always be a mug, and it will be consistent. But do you
What was that?
a mug because I'm holding a mug here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I needed the visual. We turned the video off.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so my question then is how does this agent like that has agency, which is purely metaphysical, uh move outside of the laws of the universe? Because in order for it to have agency and be free from the laws of universe, it has to be able to disobey the laws that it is set. right?
No. You are you what you've done there is you've taken two things that are mutually exclusive to each other.
Interesting.
What you're saying is I have to, in order for me to have agency, I have to defy the laws of the universe. No, that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I am everything that I am and everything that I will be from beginning to end are because of the laws of the universe.
Hmm. So all your actions are 100% caused by the laws of the universe and you following it.
Well, let's put it this way. I can't act outside the laws of the universe. I can't
So
step outside and fly in the air.
100%, right? 100%.
There's certain things that I can do that I don't need the laws of the universe being as they are operate the way that they do. I mean, I'll use my instrument as another example. I mean, I can pick up my guitar and I can put my fingers in certain positions and hit the strings and it'll make a sound. All of these things are in effect because of the physics and the laws that our universe has in it. The way sound travels, the way light travels, the way the vibrations of the strings determine what tone you're going to hear. All of this stuff operates within this universe. Now, the real question is, would it operate the same outside of our universe? That's the metaphysical question that could be answered through, we could talk about it through philosophy, but we wouldn't really know. You wouldn't really know if sound works the same way, because all of these things that are happening while I'm playing my instrument, again, it's happening because of the physical laws of this universe.
But how we define agency, though, is that the agent itself decides on its own independently, right? No
Okay, yeah,
matter the external forces, the laws of the universe, right? It of course there are things that it has to follow, right? Like the physical stuff. But in terms of it, the decisions that it makes, these choices that
right.
that are within our options. So for that, in determinism, is the only coherent worldview in a materialistic worldview, because everything is within the laws of the universe and nothing can escape it. So there are actually no choices.
Yeah, but there are choices, because there are things that can happen within the universe with all of its laws and whether they be physical or even metaphysical, where it does not matter. It does not matter to the universe if I pick up my guitar or if I pick up the candle next to me. It does not. That is something that I am doing within the universe. The universe doesn't care about that. But again, I cannot walk outside and just decide that I'm going to fly like Superman, because the laws of physics have determined that that's not something I can do as a human being. But I can absolutely right now go and take in a bowl and mix ketchup, mustard, and mayonnaise and eat it. But
So
again, the universe doesn't give two shits about that.
So what you're saying is that,
nor am I breaking any of the laws of physics to do so.
So the external world outside of the agency that we have is actually has the buffer, which is like the consciousness, which allows us to sort of just do what we want in this realm, which we are because the consciousness, it has this like some quantum rules that lets it escape the laws of the universe.
No, you're not escaping the laws of the universe. You're not breaking any laws of the universe up until a certain point. Again, I can't fly stepping outside of my house, but I can certainly step outside of my house. I can certainly pretend that I'm flying. I could run around with my arms stretched out in the air, making plane sounds. But again, this line of questioning is it doesn't seem to be it doesn't go anywhere for me, because again, you're speaking of agency. Yes, I can make that's happening right now. But you're asking me
Mm-hmm.
if what you're saying is because I have agency, I can defy the laws of the universe, or just even being able to have agency, I'm defying the laws of the universe. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to say that the question, it doesn't have an
I
answer, because
I
it's not a
see.
good question.
Okay. So
Simply because I'm not
just
breaking the laws of
to
the
okay,
universe.
just to clarify then the model that you're presenting, it seems to me that that we are like of course we are all following the laws of the universe, right, as agents, but the laws that but as agents, the choices that we make don't actually break the law, any laws. So
Well, the choices that we make, certainly, they don't break any laws, probably most of the time, but there are
mhm,
there probably are instances where you can make a choice to try and break the physical, um, fundamental uh,
mhm,
laws of the universe. You can try to say, okay, I'm going to float. I'm going to take my candle, and I'm going to will it with my mind to float in the air. And when it doesn't, you're just going to be disappointed. And
mhm,
that's basically the universe saying, fuck you.
mhm. Okay. All right then. Well, but as an evidentialist, though, I mean, you, right? You are an evidentialist. It does require certain proofs from you to be able to actually believe that our consciousness allows or gives us choices, right?
Sure.
So, do you have the testable predictions that you actually that the laws of universe give us the space to be able to move about and have agency?
Well, I mean, only what we have discovered through science. I mean, we understand that there are laws of physics. We understand that there are also, these are fundamental, laws of our universe as we have discovered them so far. We are also discovering that there are other laws that may come about as we discover further about our universe. Um, so I can't prove anything past what we simply just don't know yet.
Mm. So it just, I guess, so you don't have proof of that, but so enough to actually fully, understand the whole, the everything that's happening. But that's just how it seems to you. So you want to
Right?
make.
Yeah. I mean,
Mm,
as far as reality is concerned, um, there's there's a gentleman named Dr. Hoffman. I don't know his first name, but basically what he's done is a study on what they call survival values and reality. So what he's done is in, in short, he's made a computer simulation. Okay, and in one simulation, he's allowed the agents of that reality to know and see everything about that reality. And then he's created another reality where those agents in that reality only get to see certain parts of that reality. And what they found is the agents that see less of that same reality as the other ones that can see all of it, they actually fare better when it comes to survival values. In other words,
mm,
they thrive because they can't see the entire universe. Whereas the other ones are so busy figuring everything out that's going on in their universe, because not only can they see it but and interact with it, that they're spending too much time and their survival value drops. And you could probably look this up on the internet, and it's a very interesting study. Now, what that tells me is if if we're going through if I'm understanding how evolution works, then we absolutely do not see reality in all of its glory and majesty. And this is evident through, we know insects see the ultraviolet, we can't. There are animals that can see in the dark. We don't see very well in the dark. There are different aspects of reality that are there that we just don't deal with, simply because we, through evolution, have come to have a very streamlined survival value, kind of understanding of what reality is. So to say that everything that I see and hear in reality is reality in its entirety, I can't say that I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, okay. I guess my understanding of consciousness from a materialistic view. Please correct me if this is my understanding. Everything that's going on in our brain is chemical reactions, hormones, right, and purely biological, and consciousness is simply emergent from all these biological processes, right? And of course, the biological processes react to gravity, to everything, to the laws of the universe, and that cannot escape it, right?
Right.
So when I decide, for example, if I'm going to go somewhere here or there, I would assume that in a materialistic worldview, where everything, all my choices are determined by my biology, and everything that is within I guess that affects me about biology is according to the deterministic nature of the universe. So I'm gonna ask you, right? Is there the does our biology, actually allow us to have these options that don't, or that are not, I guess not bypass or break or whatever, but simply still within the laws of the universe? That at some point is like, instead of like mathematical, there's the answer can be two things or three things or four things.
Well, I mean, again,
Mm-hmm.
what you said was,
And
when
just
you
please
decide,
correct me. That's sort of how I understand it.
well, well, here's where I had a problem with
Mm-hmm.
what you were describing.
Mm-hmm.
When you said that you walk from A to B, in a deterministic universe,
Mm-hmm.
what does the universe have to do with you walking from A to B, other than the fact that you are existing in that universe as the laws of that universe as we know them
Mm-hmm.
are the way they are? What does
Well,
the
the
universe have to do with
universe
you
would
walking from A
affect
to
my
B?
desires.
No, it
The
wouldn't. Why would the universe give two shits about your
Well,
desires?
so my desires are based on hormones, or my desires to, or motivations to live, right? The
Okay,
motivations to.
so it seems to me that that you are not allowed by the universe to make a decision, and I don't see what that has to do with anything at all. You thinking, deciding on to go from A to B,
Mhm.
whether you walk there with clothes on or whether you walk there naked, the universe does not care. If you wanted to teleport from A to B, well,
Well,
you
I
better.
would say to a to a very very detailed or the smallest, the minute, I
Well,
guess, yeah, all the hormones in my body, all the chemicals, right, in my brain, they're all doing what the universe is telling them, and they can't do anything
no,
about
see,
it.
the universe is not telling your brain to do anything.
Well, I guess, what I
You're
mean
and,
is
and
that
if you think that that's true, if you think the
mm,
universe is actually telling you what to do, then you're going to have to prove that point somehow. You're going to have to present some sort I mean, even evidence or even a theory as to why you think the universe
well,
determines whether you has anything to do with you walking from A to B.
mhm. Well, I guess I can't do it in a macrological sense, right? The action itself, but
Right.
the we like the laws of physics would say that we know that um Like a mug will always be a mug. It will maintain its form. It will follow the laws of thermodynamics. Follow all the laws of physics, right? And as long as it continues to stay that way, then it does obey the universe, right? So that's what the chemicals in my brain are doing, how my biology reacts and
Well,
react.
again,
Mm,
again, we're talking about consciousness, and
mm,
if you're suggesting that even just the idea of having consciousness negates the laws of the universe, that I don't see how that is. In
mhm,
other words, you are the result
mhm.
of the laws of the universe. That's
Exactly.
this is a view that you are the result of the laws of the universe, and how you act within them a certain way. The universe simply just doesn't doesn't care. There's nothing that the universe does to make you or stop you or from even thinking about going from point A to point B. It
Mm.
has abs
Okay,
it doesn't
I
care
see.
about that.
All right.
But
Yeah,
but
I see.
because of the fundamental laws of the universe being as they are, you can't just simply fly through the air to that point yet, unless you use some sort of mechanical device, such as a plane or a glider. Again, you're operating within limits that are laid down by the fundamental laws of the universe,
Mm.
as we understand them so far.
Okay. All right. Well, I do understand your point here. Moving on then, right?
Okay.
Uh, let's. I guess that's your view on free will, right?
Yes.
You're determinist, but also a compatibilist, and of course, agree that there's a metaphysical self that has agency.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And then in that worldview, I would like to ask you, what are the actions, I guess, that one has in terms of the pursuit in life, or I guess in existentialism, like, why are we here? What you said that the point of life is to just live it.
But what I mean by that is, I mean, obviously, when you're born,
Mm,
you didn't go into a room and flip a switch and say, okay, I want to be born. I want to be born fat and ugly, and I want to be born with two heads. You didn't get to choose any of this. Okay, you came into existence because two people got together and made love, and they had a child. Now, as you start going through your life, as you start understanding your surroundings, and you are receiving input from your parents, from your friends, from your education, all of these things, you decide on what it is that you like to do. For me, I like to play and create music. I also like to play video games. I also like to read books. I'm into philosophy. I always, I'm always trying to expand my mind. These things that make me me, the way I look, the way I feel, the way I interact with others, all of that is me. Everything that is me, that is not you, let's say, that's how, for me, my life is my life, your life is your life. The way I have meaning in my life is, by living my life, I have determined what my likes and dislikes are, what I like to do and what I don't like to do, and what has meaning for me and what doesn't have meaning for me.
mhm,
So until you live, so in when I say the meaning of life is to live it, yes, because you didn't ask to be here. So now you're kind of, if you want to take a nihilist approach, a prisoner in a world where you have to determine what your meaning is. You have to determine what is right and wrong for you. And unfortunately, in that moral sense, not everything that you think is right is going to be right for everyone else. And you have to learn these things. I mean, living in a society with other people is
mhm,
a very, very difficult thing to do, if you ask me,
mhm,
considering how different people are. But again, if we're talking about the meaning of life, you have to live it. You have to live it. You have to go through the good times. You have to go through the bad times. You have to understand everything that is, um, what you can do, what your limits are, and you know understand that your failings also build the same, also build your character as much as your achievements. I mean, I to me, it's not this super thing where, and I'll tell you what, it's not a totalitarian regime where I'm told I'm broken and I have to be fixed, and the only way to do that is to believe in an absent phantom. I mean, to me, that's just ridiculous. I mean, if that's the meaning of your life, if that is what gives meaning to your life, then that's fine. If that works for you, then that's okay. I'm not offended by that in any way. I don't think any less of anybody that worships. I used to do it too, but again, I mean, if we're talking about the meaning of life, that is the best way that I can describe it. Is you have to live it, and you have to see what it is that what it is that's going to have meaning, and what your desires are, and where your morality sits compared to others, and under knowledge and wisdom and all of those things that are passed on, and how you pass those things on, that
Mm.
knowledge and wisdom that you get. I mean, it's the meaning of life is everything that I've learned from my parents, everything that I've learned from my friends, and everything that I've learned on my own. I'm able to determine, okay, I like this and I don't like that. And I can give you reasons why I like something and the reasons why I don't like something. But there may be a person who likes something that I don't like. So I can say, okay, why do you like this so much? And I'll tell you why I don't like it so much. And then maybe I can have a better understanding where I might like it. You see, the thing about me, and I learned this early on when I became an atheist, and I saw the way people just are so nasty and they act so vicious to each other. I don't I don't understand why people need to vilify people in order to make a point. And that's the one thing I can't stand about social media, because normally these things that people say to each other, and whether they're talking about religion or morality or politics, it's something you would never say to someone to their face. But because you're online, most people have fake accounts, where you don't know who the person is, and they're not worried about any ramifications about what they say to other people. And it's ridiculous. So you get this, you get this vilification, and it goes back and forth. There are atheists that do it. There are religious people that do it. Um, and I don't understand why, I decided a long time ago that I don't need to do that. I don't need to vilify anybody to make my point. And just because someone believes, okay, just like my mom, she still believes, although I've knocked her down from Christianity to being a deist. I don't have to vilify anyone in order to stand by what I believe, or what I think is true. Um,
Mm.
and I think that what that does is, in the end, it allows me to be able to change my mind. If someone came along finally and said, hey, check this out, this absolutely unequivocally proves that a God exists, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be the God of the Bible, then okay, well, let's discuss this. Let's make sure that this is 100% true, and then I can absolutely be convinced. As it stands right now, I cannot defend the position that there is a deity, and it doesn't matter which one you want to talk about. I cannot defend the position on any of them. I can't do it through logic. I can't do it through, you know, or even philosophy for that matter. I mean, but again, if we're talking about the metaphysical, to me, it doesn't, it doesn't solidify the the hypothesis in reality, other than it's a thought. if you believe that a God exists, well, that's for you personally. But I am not convinced by what you think is true, by what you're presenting.
Mm.
So it's again, I mean, it doesn't, it makes no difference in my about, how religion and affects governments. I mean, especially in the Philippines. I mean, I would imagine my ex-wife is Filipino, and I know that her family, especially her mother, she was very, very religious. I mean, as most people are in the Philippines. So it's, I would imagine, how do you treat the atheists in your country? I mean, do you consider them apostates, or do you consider them like, oh, well, they just don't know any better? I mean, how does that work for you guys?
A lot of the population is very religious. Yeah, and
Yes.
so I myself am a Christian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So I but I do hope that critical thinking, and just discovering for oneself what you actually, what is convincing to you, rather than just obeying some indoctrination.
Right.
That's I would believe that we would have a more progressive society with lions rather than just a bunch of sheep.
Right. Yeah, of course. I mean, look, I hold on. I know it's difficult sometimes to believe that everybody should have an opinion. Okay. But uh, true belief becomes knowledge only by emerging victorious from the den of argument, disagreement, and discussion. Without the process, like what we're having here, even true belief remains just prejudice. I believe it's not exactly what he said, but it's a quote from Stuart Mills, and it's in order to have these discussions, genuinely, it's you know, like I said, I don't have to vilify your belief to make my point at all, and not and neither do you to me. It's nice to be able to talk to someone who thinks differently than I do, and when I give my explanation for things, I mean, I was never a college student. I'm lucky I got my high school diploma. So, I mean, as far as when it comes to philosophy, it's things that I've learned from reading books, from watching videos and debates, and from, just interacting with other people. Again, it's I'm perfectly fine with your belief. I don't, I don't. My job isn't to try to convince you. My job is to convince to test rather my convictions, so that do they stand in the face of what you're saying, to where I can hold them the way that I have for the last 10 years. um and again, I mean, the same thing goes for you. It's up to you to determine whether you want to question your beliefs or not. you know i it doesn't affect me in any way, whether you do or whether you don't. I find it absolutely admirable that you have the fortitude and the resilience to take this kind of thing head on. Because the first thing I like to do sometimes when I get into conversations with people, especially if they believe, like, look, if you want to have this conversation, um, you may walk away or you may not walk away questioning what it is you believe. Um, a long time ago, I made a saying about faith, which was, faith to me is putting your convictions before evidence. And if you're going to try and use logic, it's in a logical position to have. You should not be putting your convictions before evidence, because when you do, that's you're creating a problem where your faith, as such as it is, can be destroyed, um, either by evidence or either by philosophy. if you have evidence as to what you believe, then you're in a better position to defend that belief. And not many people can do that. Not many people can defend their position, what their belief is. And it certainly wasn't easy for me in the beginning. But once I've got to see and listen, and understand the arguments that even other people were having on the subject, it made it easier for me to understand my position. And, I even came to conclusions on my own that I discovered other people had discovered. And I'm talking about, guys that have lived, in the 1800s and stuff. I mean, it's like, it's actually quite revealing, in that matter, to me, that, okay, the questions that I was asking or the answers that I came up with on my own are actually, are the same questions and the same evidences and proofs that other people had come up with a long time ago. I mean, religion is, it's a very interesting subject to me. It's, and in my particular lifetime, I mean, I've gone from being a believer to being a non-believer. And, that's what works for me. And if believing, works for you, then, like I said, I'm perfectly fine with that. I respect you as a human being. I respect you as a philosopher, as a thinker, as willing to step into the critical theory realm of religion. It's not an easy thing to do, to put your faith out there like that. So I just want to let you know that I respect you for what you're doing.
Awesome. Well, Jason, it's been awesome talking to you, man. Discovering your worldview, why you believe them, and I'm just so glad to have the opportunity to be able to pick your brain and understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, hey, it was a pleasure talking to you, and I'm glad that I hooked you up with Robert. He's actually a pretty cool guy, and I know you wanted to talk to him, and I'm glad I made that happen for you.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. Yeah, I love that interview, man. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, then, Jason, is there anything else you want to promote, man? Maybe you have a YouTube channel?
I actually have a SoundCloud page where I have music on there, and simply put, it's just soundcloud.com/Jason, JASON dash, and my last name Hanerfeld, HANERFELD, and the Jason and dash and Hanerfeld is all together. And I do have some songs about, with an atheist tint to them on there, but not all of my songs are about atheism.
Awesome.
So there's probably something for everybody.
Great. Okay, then. Well, Jason, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been awesome, man. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks for having me.
So that's the end of it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is your host, Elmo Ador Jr. And thank you for listening in. And please subscribe. Please follow us on Facebook. Please follow this. Please. Thanks.